Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Territories Talk. I am your co-host, Shaina Smith Archer, saying greetings from the Virgin Islands. And with me tonight, I have none other than any one of you guys.
Shirley Osborne, hi, from Montserrat.
And Chris Famous from Bermuda via the Virgin Islands and other places.
Yes, the Caribbean man himself.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So it's been a while since we've been on, but we're happy tonight to do a regional news roundup. And we're going to get right into it. Apologies for the delayed start. We're hoping to have a media guest tonight. So we're going to get started with our discussion. Before we do, though, we definitely have to say good night to our media partners. Marl Road Facebook page, Radio TCI, Montserrat ZJB Radio, Virgin Islands CBN Radio, FM 90.9, Bermuda's Channel 82, Radio Saba, PJFE FM 93.9, and Barbados CBC Channel 8.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Chris, over to you.
Yes, welcome to another episode of Regional Roundup. As Caribbean people, we know that we are one people, simply divided by little bits of water here and there, different dialects here and there, but we're one people. So tonight's episode, we are going to be discussing some things happening specifically in the overseas territories, but some other islands that may not necessarily be overseas territories as well. So, Speaker Shirley?
Yes, sir. How are you?
How are you doing?
Doing all right, doing well.
How's the folks in the Emerald Isle? Before we even start, how are you making out, Shaina? You all had a lot of rain.
Yes. We actually just had another, I guess, heavy shower come through about an hour or two ago. So the eye of the storm is well north of us now, trekking actually towards you. Yeah. And we're mopping up. Essentially, the roads are cleared from West End to Road Town. I went into town this afternoon, so mostly it's just probably.
I think the storm came back.
Yeah, so
power. So, Speaker Shirley, how's things in the Emerald Isle?
Well, I'm still not there yet, but they had the same thing. Lots of rain, trees down. They had electricity was gone for several hours yesterday because at some point, you know how it happens. One pole falls, and then I think they ended up with 6 poles fallen, and so most of the island was without electricity for quite a while. They got that back in the afternoon, early evening, and yeah, same thing. People are mopping up. Everybody's just kind of mopping up and moving trees that have fallen out, all over the place. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nobody got hurt, none of that. So.
Yeah, usually we got through as a region. We got through September fairly well unscathed. Thank God.
Yeah.
And I guess October's coming around to say, oh, well, hold on. Still got some time left in the hurricane season.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to stay vigilant.
Yeah.
I have to stay vigilant.
It's not over yet.
I saw some of the pictures from what had happened in Nevis, Anguilla, St. Kitts to a little small extent, but they had a lot of rain, but no structural damage or anything like that. Might have some outages in Antigua as well, but luckily there was no loss of life reported in any island because of this, right?
Yeah, we're happy.
Much needed rain though. My sister was on E.
Okay.
Well, I saw some videos from there, and I swear at one point it looked like you could go whitewater rafting on it, man.
Yeah. In the capital, in the Road Town area, I suspect it might have been high tide, so there's a challenge of water running off now when the tide is at the mouth of the gut going into the sea.
Yeah. So special shout out to the people of the Virgin Islands who look like you have had the majority of the rain, and especially for those in Roatan who have had because of Roatan being the lowest level of Tortola, you're getting the brunt of the water coming down off of the very big mountains,
Yeah.
And the irony is that according to the weather prediction, the San Felipe is heading directly north to Bermuda, and it should be impacting us either
Thursday.
Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when they try to say we're not one people, even the hurricane say, yeah, you're
Maybe
only
just what? Yep. Same set
We're
of people.
gonna pay a few visits.
Yeah.
yeah.
Let me go see what the
So,
cousins over there are doing. Yeah.
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 Alrighty.
yeah, so we can get started for a little regional roundup.
All right. Let's do it.
So, Speaker Shirley, you may want to speak to this. Your country is one of the founding members
Of CARICOM. And we are proud of that. We are very, very proud of that. We have genuinely been proud of that. I mean, in 1974, when that started, I was in school. My dad was involved in this too. So it was a time when I recall I was in secondary school. So it was a time when there was a sense that we were all one. Just like you keep talking about, Chris, that we are one, it's one group, it's one set of people, and we need to come together. What for me, however, it has been, I've watched CARICOM over the last years with some what's the word? Some frustration. I think, we're not doing nearly as well as we could. We've allowed ourselves to get distracted and separated from one another. And it's not, there's so much more we could be doing and we should be doing that we're not getting done. And of course, I understand the pressures that we're under. We're a small group, no matter how you look at it. And we have less power than relative power than other people. And so that impacts our ability to do a lot of the stuff that we want to do. But I still think there's a lot more that we could do. And so I look around the region, when I hear people talking CARICOM, when CARIFESTA used to be a big, big deal. Now it happens and, it just seems to be just anything else. So I think there's a lot of work left to be done. As far as Montserrat's concerned, we still have the challenge that because we are still officially a British Overseas Territory, and we are a full member of CARICOM, however, that impacts how much we can actually participate. We have all the rights and responsibilities of a full member, but we're also limited because England insists on
limiting you.
They're dividing our loyalties, and that bothers me. I think we could very easily be quote unquote British and be CARICOM. There were years when I was traveling, and when they give the form the nationality, I'd put CARICOM because I was so proud of that. And now we're torn between British or CARICOM, and the British government is not, doesn't hesitate to remind us that we are limited in terms of how much we actually belong to ourselves. So that's part of my frustration. But I see a lot of promising still, and I hope we get there somehow.
Yeah, and for me, our experience here in the Virgin Islands when it comes to CARICOM is something.
Thank you for that, Madam Speaker. My take on it with Bermuda being the most northern Caribbean island, for lack of a better term, is that CARICOM, although it can be doing that much more, the reality is that what we have shown over the last 50 years is that CARICOM as an institution has assisted countries to move from being colonies, because CARICOM was formed in 73, and many of the full members now were still colonies at that time. So they had a body to transition to from being just a British colony to being now a member of a Caribbean organization. And you even have Haiti as the largest member, which was a late joiner. And you have Suriname, which was never a British colony but has joined us. And now there has been successfully petitioned for Martinique and some of the Dutch islands to join CARICOM as well. I say that in the context to say that we may think, CARICOM's not perfect, but there's nothing perfect. We are a region born out of the most brutal part of human history, right?
Mhm.
And we have each other to work with. No one's gonna come to save us but ourselves.
Nope.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my take.
So I
Yeah.
was
But
gonna say, you guys hearing me okay?
yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I was going to say, our relationship with CARICOM is interesting. I was surprised when I found out that Montserrat was a full and founding member,
Mhm.
because I know us to be an associate member. So it's sort of, we're not to the table, we're on the back row. And I find that, again, there's so much that we can benefit from collaboration throughout the region. And this is one of the bodies, along with OECS, that helps to make that possible. So, I'd really like to see, like you're saying, Shirley, so many more, I guess, results coming out of the body, because there are so many great initiatives and things that are talked about or have been spoken about over the years. But in terms of the realities on the ground and persons starting to understand the value of our membership, that's something that we have to work
Yeah.
on here, in terms of, not just going to meetings every 6 months, but to make sure that we're taking advantage of the technical resources and, the different programs. For me, especially, I look at anything that has to do with small business development.
Mhm.
I'm always lobbying for, and, because of our level of membership, that's something that we have to upgrade, essentially, to be able to really, get full access and really benefit from what it is bringing. Because, I always view it as, this is our version of our European Union,
Absolutely. Mhm.
and that it works for us if we make it work for us.
Can make it work. Yeah. I think one of the things that has me really concerned is how much CARICOM means to our younger people, because I've
Mhm.
had young people in Montserrat. Fortunately, not too many, but if one for me is just too many. There are a few young people in Montserrat who have asked me over the years, well, what does it mean? What is being Caribbean doing for us? What does CARICOM do for us? Why don't we just be British, and then we can get to university for get scholarships easily, can get this, that, and the other. And so there's a sense that and Montserrat is a peculiar case, and like the overseas territories generally would be. But we always were that, but there was still this very strong sense of being Caribbean that it has diluted over the years. It has been diluted by pressures from around the world, all kinds of pressures. But I think one of the things that CARICOM ought to be doing really is trying to reignite that, because that is what will make the difference, Shane. And that's why we get people
Yeah.
engaged and looking to ourselves for our
Mhm.
solutions, rather than looking overseas, looking elsewhere.
Mhm. All right. Next up, Chris.
Yes. So again, another regional gathering, and this would have a lot of significance for the speaker. The CPA, which is the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, Caribbean Americas and Atlantic Region Conference, was held in Turks and Caicos earlier this summer. And this is where you have a number, mostly all the overseas territories and a number of the larger islands will come. So small branches are, and correct me if I'm wrong, speaker, any country that has a population of less than so many millions of persons, then that's considered a small branch. So let's say Jamaica, even though it has 3 million, it's still considered a small branch in comparison to places like UK and others.
Yeah. And that small branches segment really came into effect about 5-6 years ago, 7 years ago. Yeah. I was speaker when that came to. They'd been talking about it for a while, and that came out of the whole idea of a big part of it was the vulnerability of small island states to things like climate change. Yeah. Because when you go to the international CPA meetings, then you hear about places like Tuvalu and so on, which are literally sinking below sea level. They're losing islands out in the Pacific. And also, just like when they did, it was in 1990s, the CWP, Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians Group, was formed. It was to be able to address issues specific to or peculiar to specific groups within the large collective. And I think as far as I've been noticing, the Small Islands branch, the Small Islands group is kind of beginning to get its feet, but it's not quite there yet. It'll take a little while, just because the issues right now are so large, and still it is kind of a little bit of an afterthought. So they have to come up to speed. But the Caribbean, Americas, and Atlantic region has done a lot of weight within the CPA over the years. As usual, we punch up way above our little weight, because we have extraordinary people who have been through there and made their contributions. I mean, the last SG, Mr. Khan, was actually from Guyana originally, and had a particular interest in supporting the Caribbean, our region, in stepping up. But of course, we get, just like in CARICOM and the rest of the world, within the CPA, you have the Caribbean region, and then you have places like Africa. When Africa shows up in CPA, you literally just have to sit down. There's so many people, but because we have voice, and because as Caribbean people we also walk with a certain amount of confidence, we still manage to make impact, and that's important to me. And I hope that continues. I hope that continues. And I realize that the CPA is probably going to change to some degree now, because the politics in England is changing. So we see what shows up. We see how it works out.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yes, and this one, as you know, Shaina, one of your BV Islanders, happens to earn an airline, and now he earns spacecraft.
Yes,
so, a few weeks ago, 2 months ago to be precise, mother and daughter were the first mother and daughter to go into space per se, and they happen to be from Antigua. So that was something of significance,
Oh, nice. Oh, so this was in August. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's their background? Are they scientists, or was this like one of those?
I honestly don't know how they were picked, but
it was a lottery of some kind. It was they won it. I can't remember the details right now, and I could have checked. I probably should have checked before now. They won. There was something. Branson asked them to. Oh, I can't remember exactly what, but yeah, they won. They won. It was a group. There was a lottery.
There was a prize. Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. As many would know, overseas territories have been continuously under threat from the OECD, the UK, G20, G7, you name it, whatever alphabet they come up with next. So continuously threatening our financial services, right? So over the last few years, there's been this proposal for global minimum tax that companies that are domiciled in outside of their home countries, i.e. Europe or America, still have to pay 15%. So Bermuda has taken under consultation that we may have to include corporate income tax, because if the companies are being taxed here, then they are in compliance with the OECD's global minimum thing. So what's happening now is that the international business sector is the one leading it right now. So they are the ones who have to pay the tax eventually, whether it's to us or pay it to their home countries. So we're still in development stages with that, but that's where that is.
Yeah, I saw the press conference for this back in August. I think it actually may have watched it later than that. And I was kind of surprised, but I had been hearing about the discussion. So it truly piqued my interest, because we have the same situation here where many years ago we zeroed out corporate income tax rate, and the government instituted what we call payroll tax as a way to stay competitive in the financial services industry. So, as usual, the bar is moving again, and we have to try to stay ahead, or keep up rather, I don't know how to keep ahead of these guys, Chris.
Yeah.
Well, you're never going to keep ahead of them because, let's face it,
They're
they
making
have
up the rules.
money,
Yeah.
right?
Point. That's a good point. They're making
But
up the rules, so we
even
can't
back
get
to
ahead.
the CARICOM not issue, but discussion. If us as the smaller countries, especially the overseas territories, once we stick together, they can't trick you into something that
Yeah,
we have already
everybody
been
else.
tricked. You can say no, 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 don't do that, do that.
Yeah,
This is what they fear most is that us we actually stick together, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And whether it's CARICOM, OEC, the
OECS.
OECS, or what other UCOTA, whatever other configuration. As long as we stick together, we may not agree on every single point, but if we stick together, then we're able to present a unified argument, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's important to have that block because then there's more strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you talk about the CARICOM thing, that's what I think we have lost so much in recent years. This notion that we really must. I mean, we might be beginning to get that back. It might begin to grow again in some quarters, but it seems to me that the idea that we really must stick together. I totally agree with you there. The divide and conquer is not a conspiracy. It's real. It's real, and it's happening every day. When the American government, the American president invites certain Caribbean people and not others, or when England gives monies to, I don't know, to CDB for use with some territories, but not others, it creates these divisions. So we have to really begin to speak as a group about what we want. And I think it goes back to us having a plan, just like we have strategic plans for our individual territories. We need to have a strategic plan for what we want CARICOM to be, that everybody understands and can buy into, and that will guide our governments when they get these offers and invitations and stressors that can divide us. Because Montserrat be having the same issues. I mean, England destroyed our financial services around about 1989, took over control of it. And none of the governments has yet made an attempt to take that back, because they're thinking, as I guess, okay, they have it, so they're not going to give it back, so we shouldn't even bother to try. But those things of taxes are coming up. If we are not allowed to give incentives for people to invest in Montserrat or move their money to Montserrat, do whatever business in Montserrat, if we can't give them incentives, then of course they're not going to come to Montserrat. They will go where things are much easier. I don't know, Barbados, Trinidad, Delaware in the United States, they go to England. So I find these international rules often are unfair and unhelpful to small territories. And this is one of them. Quite frankly, I feel so. It limits us. It prevents us. I mean, and if you go back to think about banana, the agricultural industry, banana and sugar, that's what happened. The same thing. We are not allowed to make this thing work for us, to create space for ourselves. You have to follow rules that are either too expensive or just not appropriate for us. And that when that happens, then you find it more difficult for people to actually stick together and work together. So we really have to find solutions for all of these things.
Oh. All right.
What
we have
here? Yes, in our, I would say, one of our sister islands, who actually, this is one of the countries that actually do take a great amount of time to defend and assist the overseas territories. In the Bahamas, they lost the sitting minister, Obadiah Obi Wilchcombe, who was the minister of social services, which dealt with like housing for those who were less fortunate, I guess you would say. But he was a well-loved minister. He was a long-time minister, served in multiple cabinets as Minister of Tourism at one point in time. But more importantly, he was a person that if you saw him in the street, he would not put on airs. He'd be like, "Hey, come here, Shaina. Hey, come here, Shirley." You know, that type of everyday minister. And so the Bahamas on a whole, whether they are PLP or FNM. PLP is the building that you see in the background is the national headquarters of the Progressive Liberal Party, which is the governing party in Bahamas. So last night they had a in-house sitting memorial for him.
Mhm.
But whether you were PLP or FNM, he was a well-loved man. So it's important to just give a moment of reflection
Sure.
on him, because he
Yeah.
has set this sort of trend that of what you should be as a politician.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah. Interesting that.
Yeah. Well, that was a very positive note, Chris, because, when I speak to persons these days, they're very disillusioned with politics or politicians. And I
Yeah.
remember saying to someone the other day, I said, no, that wouldn't be politics is the problem. Poor leadership is the problem. So
Yep.
I'm happy to hear this is somebody who exemplifies the positivity that politics also is. And the reason why it's needed actually, country, when we have good people that go in there and do good things.
Yeah, and I especially want to single out Bahamas because during the recent challenges in the VI and other places, whilst Bahamas was the chair, of CARICOM, they went out of the way through the Foreign Affairs Minister, Honorable Fred Mitchell, and Prime Minister Brave Davis to ensure to pull the full weight of the Commonwealth of Bahamas to assist the overseas territories.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Bobby Wellstrom. Nice.
Okay, we had Ms. Wooding on a minute
We
ago.
did. I think she may have popped off due to some IT issues. So hopefully she pops back on before
Well,
we're
Shane,
finished.
I'll let you take this one.
Look at
So
that.
this was our current situation, basically 24 hours ago. I was trying to recognize. This looks like, oh, I know what this is. This is off of Main Street. And again, this is the
right next to
capital.
Virgin Queen, right?
Yeah, no, actually, that's right way. It looks like.
Right.
You see a white building with green stripes. That's right way. That's one of our.
No, I'm saying, what I'm saying is it's close by Virgin Queen, right?
Oh yes, on the other side of the street.
Uh-huh.
You know your area, Chris.
He knows the country.
I have a house right next to Virgin Queen. So.
Yeah. So this was, we had a lot of mudslides, a lot of rock slides. Whether on the hillside or on the coastal roads, but and basically everything stopped today. So government offices, the banks, the schools, businesses, everyone was home, and if they did anything, it would have been remotely. The supermarkets did open, or at least some of them did open up later on this afternoon. I myself went into town and found it pretty much easy to pass. There were still some areas. One of the things that challenges us though is that it was such a heavy downpour in a short space of time. And a few years ago, I think even before Hurricanes Irma and Maria in 2017, we realized that with all the development in the hillsides, it's redirected a lot of the water flow. And we had hydrology consultancy being done because, flooding happens all the way from waterfront drive where the ferries come in all the way around to the cargo port. The whole of Road Harbor, is challenged. So we really do need to get a handle on, what can be done to address this. I mean, we can't. If you get 12 inches of rain in a few hours, there's nothing you can build. And if there is high tide, that also affects the flow out of the guts into the harbor. So, the longer that takes, the more water starts to back up. So, but I think for the most part, definitely there was no deadly damage. And for me, that was really good because there's so many news stories we see all the time. Whether it's fire, drought, flooding, where we see that there's loss of life. So, persons, we more or less I left for town probably by 5:00 yesterday afternoon, and then the rain started and basically didn't let up. This was the result of it. So, but so cleaning up started this afternoon. Some more will happen, I guess, tomorrow. But we have an all clear now, so we're able to go back out tomorrow, as long as offices are functional to get up and running again. So,
Yeah, right.
thankfully, it's the later part of the hurricane season. I was happy for the rain because we were looking a bit dry on the hillsides first. And whenever I pass water trucks, I know that it's been some time since we've had steady rain. So, and that was the case last month. So it was welcome from that respect, but not so much. Not so much. That was a lot. So we'll see how it shapes up tomorrow.
Well, I know there's no consolation, but New York flooded last week too. Did you notice?
Yeah, I saw that.
You wonder how these things happen. It's just
what's scary for me in New York is where you talk about subways flooding. There's no way down there, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, flooding is dangerous no matter where it is. Yeah.
So that's where we are. So let's stay vigilant. Season isn't over until the 30th of November, so we still have 6 more weeks, give or take.
Yeah, that whole October all over doesn't work anymore, does it?
No, they extended it out to November a few years ago.
Yeah, not June too soon anymore either. It's funny. Yeah.
Well, it's all, to me, it's all a part of the conversation we have about the climate crisis.
Yeah.
One of the things that came to me today, again, thinking back about, where are we with this hydrology study and, making the changes that need to happen, but also how are we monitoring sea level rises? Because even if it's up by 6 inches, it makes a difference.
Yeah. And it comes back down to, the people who are least responsible for the damage are the ones who are suffering the most.
Yeah.
Literally, physically suffering the most and economically suffering the most as a result.
Yeah, because look at this. This is, if you don't have flood insurance, this is out of your pocket.
Yeah.
So, and to, again, after the hurricanes, and this was throughout the region, heard the latest stories in terms of insurance going up when Florida had their storm earlier this summer. And, some people's insurance tripled after Hurricane Irma.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think flood insurance is.
What happened there?
I don't know.
I had loaded a video and hit the wrong one by mistake.
Oh, okay.
He's only a host in here.
Yes.
We went to Jamaica just now, okay.
We apologize. We just experienced some technical difficulties.
Yeah. I have a short clip from our friends at 284 Media that I wanted to play with your permission, Shaina.
Okay, go right ahead there, sir.
This is what I meant to play.
Across the territory of the Virgin Islands, areas affected by the flooding had extensive damage. Now, of course, we caught up with a number of ministers of government to get their updates on the significant damage that took place.
Roads are now passable in the town area. And just visiting those persons that needed some assistance, reached out to Red Cross and they come and assist them when they're allowed to come out and assist. So I made some assessments on their behalf and I will share that information shortly with them.
Well, I think most of the roads are cleared by now. We had some persons who are actually flooded and we're actually trying to, make sure that they're safe. But all in all, I think we fared pretty well based on the rainfall overnight.
Well, the school, based on the area where the school is, it's in the heart of town. We saw the bus that overflowed
Stay tuned for more in our local newscasts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, our friend Ron does excellent work, so I want to highlight some of the work that he's
Yes,
done.
shout
Yeah,
out
good
to
work.
Ron
Yeah,
at 284. So our guest is having internet challenges, so she'll join us as soon as she gets that resolved. Okay. So back to our regular scheduled program.
Yeah.
All right. The Martin to hold election in
Yeah,
January.
that's self-explanatory.
So we actually need to get an update in terms of their current affairs, because they've been having so much stuff happening over the last 5 years in terms of having elections, not being able to form a coalition government, and different things like that. So we need to call up our friends over there and see what how they're anticipating, what level of anxiety they have around this.
Yeah, because the thing with the Dutch system is that, unlike the Westminster system where you generally have 2, maybe 3 parties running, the Dutch system, they allow for multiple parties. Not to say any system can, but they go across to what they call proportional representation. So for example, if 5 parties run and my party got the majority of the votes, in the Westminster system, we would be the government. But in the Dutch system and other system, proportional representation, they say, okay, well, this is the percentage of votes. Your party got this percentage. Your party got this percentage. So you get 3 seats, you get 1 seat, and you get 1 seat. So what it leads to is this almost like Survivor Island, like who's going to be in alliance with this person, and then they fall out and then an alliance with this person. So it sort of is an actual level of divide and conquer, if you may, because it doesn't lead to a cohesive
collaboration.
Yeah. It keeps you separated and fighting one another.
Yeah, in some ways, some people might say, oh, well, that means more collaboration. But as if you could see with the Dutch islands, St. Martin, St. Eustatius, Saba, Bonaire, Aruba, Curacao, it's led to added chaos. And every time you look in St. Martin, somebody's getting, how can I say, a part of government is collapsing because this coalition is breaking up. So that's why they can't. I mean, we haven't got as far as we can with decolonization, but with those countries, it's going to be even harder for them because they're so busy infighting as to who's going to be government. I'm not going to be government. You're going to be government. I'm going to be government. You're going to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's this stability. We actually have a question from our audience, Chris. I don't know if you want to throw it in here before we do the next slide.
Okay.
Real quick.
I was Alenio F. Ricot. I may have pronounced that incorrect. Would the hosts give their perspective on taking on the guy who came to Cayman and made a TikTok, and have they dealt with the same issue in their area of terrorism? Well,
tourism.
what his referring to is that a gentleman American came to the Cayman Islands and made a TikTok just of him looking at himself, saying that Cayman Islands is not for Caymanians, that the prices are high, that there's no real Caymanian culture to be found, so on and so forth. Which when it first came out, many Caymanians said, "Hey, this guy's speaking the truth." I mean, Madam Speaker, you've been to Cayman Islands, so I guess you could speak better than me. But now what is going on is to make more and more videos to try to get more, as you say, more followers and so on. So he's now making himself this expert on Cayman Islands after only visiting there once.
Oh wow! So basically, that's a lot of negative press then.
Yeah, well, it's on TikTok. The people that are planning to come to Cayman Islands ain't gonna not come because of this guy. But what
Yeah.
his initial video did speak the truth that because of overdevelopment, as our friend Eden would have pointed out, that Cayman Islands has lost a lot of its, I don't want to say culture, but character that Caymanians are used to. And Caymanians are now the minority in the country, which is happening in many OTs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we all, I think, are grappling with the idea of multiculturalism, um, and what that means, to our development. Because with everything, there's always the benefits as well as the costs that come with it. You know, nothing is for free. So when we have high rates of migration, even if it's transient in some cases because persons are there for seasonal jobs or what's not, because we see, we have that debate all the time here, sometimes with Virgin Islanders, talking about, no, this is what I know as traditional Virgin Islander. It's the way we cook food, the music we listen to, different things along those lines. And it's important, again, for me, it goes right back to, what we were talking about earlier. It's all about, the types of policies that are made that help to preserve history and heritage of a country. Because if you don't do it intentionally, it will wane, and it will be kind of caught up with the tide, so to speak, of other cultures and traditions that come into your country.
Yeah. I think too, one of the considerations has to be how information is disseminated nowadays, and who gets to control your story. Because I mean, if you're talking about formal news organizations, the assumption is that they will do their due diligence. They will question things and look for the truth for their stories. But that's not the only way that information is disseminated nowadays. And so the notion that all you need is a camera, a phone, and a camera, you have a phone, and you show up somewhere, and that gives you not just the right but the ability to speak somebody else's story without any
validation.
Any validation. You don't need cause, you don't need reason, you don't need permission, nothing. You can just say whatever you want, and there's no recourse really.
No.
The news organizations, if there's libel and slander and all that for this quote unquote private individual information dispenser, I don't know what you call them. There's no recourse. And we can take the view that a lot of it won't make a difference, but then there are those exceptions, and how do you know which one is which?
Yeah.
But again, how do you control your story? How do you accept you have the resources and the time, and you're being really focused and determined about putting your story out there? And so people get to know it's a challenge. It's a challenge. Yeah.
Okay, then we have one other one.
Yeah, so Gabrielle Miller, thank you. I would like to know how the other territories are tackling affordable solar for their citizens. So in Bermuda, we have duty relief for solar. If you want to bring a solar for your personal home or commercial entity, there's actually duty relief for that. So that's how we are doing it.
And I think here in the Virgin Islands, we're currently working on developing a policy, but so that, again, persons want to, whether it's for a business or personal use, that there'll be some type of duty relief on that.
Yeah. In Montserrat, we're going back and forth on this over the years. Sometimes you get duty free and you're allowed, sometimes you're not. Literally, there have been times in the last years, and I think right now there are also restrictions on how freely you can bring in solar equipment, because the energy policy in Montserrat is, again, not fully formed. There's the idea, are we going to use solar? We no longer use fossil fuels, but of course we're getting a new generator in a little while, which is going to be using diesel. There's the questions about geothermal energy since the volcano, and that has been all over the place. They've dug 3 wells and none of them is working. The government also, however, has been using solar for government installations, so government buildings, and they actually put a solar farm somewhere. But I'm embarrassed to say I have for somehow not been able to make it function the way it's supposed to. Then there are all these questions about how serious the government really is about solar. So yeah, for us, I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Montserrat has not fully settled on the issue of using solar power yet. In theory, we have, but in actual fact, it's not up and running.
Okay. Well, before we go back to our slides, just want to say again, a thank you to our media partners, Cayman Marl Road, Facebook page, Radio TCI, Montserrat, ZJB Radio, Virgin Islands, CBN Radio, FM 90.9, Bermuda's Channel 82, Radio Saba, PJFE, FM 93.9, and Barbados is CBC Channel 8. And we're hoping to have our last OT on soon, but we're working through it. And if there are any viewers that would like to see us in your jurisdiction on your local media, feel free to let us know. You can send us a message via our Facebook page, and we will follow up on that. So that's where we are. Okay. So we have a few more slides. Chris,
before Chris comes back, Shaina, and before while we're still on the issue, we were talking about media and getting people. You were thanking our media partners and so on. And if we're doing a roundup, I think one of the questions, and also going back to that conversation about the TikToker and Cayman Islands, one of the things I think, I don't know the story of every territory in the Caribbean, but I am clear that there are of course governments also are grappling with the idea of how to manage information, not just image information, but information generally. And in Montserrat right now, one of the guests that we had invited for today, who very graciously declined, was the conversation was how we manage media, how we manage the media to support our development. And I think that's a really critical conversation to have. And so, I look at the Virgin Islands and Cayman, and you see a whole list of, if you Google Bermuda, you see a whole list of media houses, yeah. And then I look at Montserrat, and right now, for example, one of the issues that we're having is it's not even that there are so few, there are hardly any. One of the things that's happening in Montserrat right now is that the government has decided that the government information unit, and I know all the overseas territories, and every government has their own little, what I call the propaganda machine. The government has to say what it wants to say about itself. And then you have media, which to my mind is supposed to be free and available and accessible. And what's happening in Montserrat is that government is pulling the one radio station we have into, quote unquote, into the government clutches. I don't know how else to put it. And combining it with the government information unit. And that, for me, is another way in which we are limiting information. I really believe that if we are going to develop both as individual territories and as a region, one region, one of the things you really have to do is be deliberate and proactive about ensuring that our citizens have access to information and have the ability to exchange and have these, like we're doing with Territories Talk. We need more of this, but we also need more of these kinds of fora within the individual territories, so that actually when we have these inter-territory conversations, we have information to exchange. And if we are going to be limited, like for example, that's what's happening in Montserrat, if you're going to be limited, we're going to limit how our citizens access and use information, then I think we are setting ourselves up for trouble. It has to be that we deliberately go after information and make sure we all have all the information that we need. And this is not just for general information. This has to do everything from health to climate change to economics to the international agreement, all of those things. Our citizens need to know these things. Yeah, and I'm worried that we are not up to speed where that's concerned, and we are doing ourselves a serious disservice.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where thankfully, because if we were in an age where we didn't have the internet, we definitely would be closed off in an echo chamber. And as you say, propaganda is easily spread in those situations. So, that is something where it'd be good to get a panel together to kind of discuss even the challenges that we have across the region, when it comes to media and news and communication and getting that done.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a few more slides to go. Chris, what's happening here? What is the WORC?
Well, basically, in Cayman Islands, it's a government/private sector joint venture for immigration. The immigration department's called WORC, right?
Okay.
So what this gentleman is saying that they're going to target rogue employers because as a lot of employers are bringing in persons from other places, let me put it that way, and not paying them decent rate, not paying the pension, so on and so forth. So they are trying to.
So they're going behind the system, not going through the system, but behind the system.
Right. Because a lot of people go to Cayman Islands on vacation and end up working there, right?
Okay. We see that here too.
Yeah.
All right.
There was talk in Montserrat just a few weeks ago that the government was considering, because we have a population problem. It's not just that our population is skewed. Well, it must be about equal, non-Montserratians and Montserratians. But there's also that we are so few that the government has been looking for ways to increase the population. And one of the things that came out was in the air, which nobody has been able to verify, but that the government was considering allowing people who came in with visitors visas to be able to transfer them, to change them to work permits, just to get people in. And it's a ticklish one, it's a ticklish one for all of us.
Yeah. So in this one, CARFO, which is the Regional Health Authority, is had a health security meeting a few weeks back, and I want to give great thanks to this lady because during Dr. St. Jane, because during the even before the COVID crisis hit the Caribbean, she was at the CARICOM meeting in Barbados and said, listen, we're going to have to close down our ports. We're going to have to do this. And many prime ministers were like, what? No, we can't do that. We're getting that's our income. It's just like, if you want to contain this virus, we're going to have no travel. And during the entire time, during the pandemic, she held up the Caribbean and informing us, doing tests, so on and so forth. So I want to give a lot of thanks to her.
Definitely. Did a lot of sleepless months. Did a lot of work, even with shutting us down and then bringing us back up online. There was so much things that they did to support. So definitely have to recognize all that effort.
Yeah, it was rough.
So in this one, Cayman Islands, the gentleman in the middle is Honorable Kenneth Bryan, who's the MP in Cayman Islands, but he's also the Minister of Tourism and Transport. And Cayman, unlike the other overseas territories, have their own airline. So here he is announcing a direct flight between Cayman Islands and Barbados. So basically, is linking the Eastern Caribbean with the Western Caribbean, which, as many of us know, we have to go fly up to Miami and then somewhere else, and then somewhere else to get to from one island to another. So he's doing great things. He's also currently the CTO. He's the CEO of the chair of the CTO, Caribbean Tourism Authority.
Okay.
And here in Bermuda, tomorrow, matter of fact, we have a by-election because of the resignation of the opposition leader, then opposition leader, Cole Simons. And we have a by-election between, on the left-hand side, Misha Fabler of the PLP, which is my party, and Ben Smith, which is of the OBA. Now, the difference between Bermudian politics is the OBA tends to be the more conservative party, or the PLP is our basis is a Labour Party. That by-election is tomorrow, and the polling stations are open from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. The demographics in the area probably tend to favor the OBA,
Okay.
and the actual constituency is on paper is 1,300 registered voters. So
Okay.
you'll see how I'll give an update tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have electronic counting, or this is gonna be
No,
by?
we what we do is we count the ballots at each individual polling station. So
Okay.
the principal officer will pull it out and say Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Next one to say Osborne, Smith. So
Mhm.
we haven't advanced like VI and Anguilla as yet.
No, well, I'm looking at, if you have a turnout of even 800, that's a lot of ballots to count by
Yeah,
hand.
it's generally when we go into the count, they give you the first count with the first quarter, the second quarter, third quarter. So
Okay, they break
um,
it
the count generally is an hour and a half. So
up. Okay.
it's traditional, but in today's time it's archaic as well, right?
Yeah.
Well, as long as you get to it efficiently and you're home by sunrise.
Oh yeah, you be at the polling station by 10 o'clock.
Oh,
Well,
really? In Montserrat, all of them go to one place, and so literally, when you have an election, you don't get home until sunrise. You never get
yeah,
home before sunrise.
yeah.
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 So they sound
Um,
like they have a very efficient system.
Yeah.
this is the Minister of Tourism in
Mhm.
Turks and Caicos, Honorable Josephine Connolly, and she announced that Grand Turk, the main island, the capital island of Turks and Caicos, recorded 51% increase in cruise passengers, with 10% rise in ship arrivals. So some say that we should cut back on cruise ships because of what it does to the environment, but at the end of the day, people still gotta eat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're spending, I know that there is always going to be that debate in terms of the spend,
Mhm.
whether the cruise, even if you have more cruise passengers, are they really spending more into the economy? So at least that's one of the debates here, with where persons favor overnight versus the cruise, um, when they're lobbying.
So this one in the Cayman Islands, Commissioner Byrne is the first Caymanian commissioner of police in 21 years. So for
Oh, wow.
21 years, they've had English police officers, which English commissioner of police, which happens in most of the overseas territories. So
Mhm.
that's something to be proud of as overseas territories, that they have a native born.
Mhm.
Our commissioner of police in Bermuda is Bermudian, but prior to him, we had an English um, police commissioner.
Yeah.
The next one, our one of our guests, Honorable Quincy Gums Marie,
Mm-hmm.
represented the overseas territories at a climate function hosted by Forbes magazine over in Dubai,
Mm.
and she is very well versed in in our ocean and climate issues,
Mm-hmm.
and very proud to have her representing us over there.
Yeah.
She sent me a message today. She said, "Wherever I am, I carry the all of the overseas territories with me."
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. She's good.
Um, trying to move this slide.
That's it. Oh, actually,
No, we have one more, couple more.
oh, there it is.
So also in the Turks and Caicos, we have some local young Turks and Caicos Islanders who have moved up to be directors and assistant directors. One is mechanical services, or the vehicles for the Turks and Caicos government, and two who are directors of planning.
That's great. That's it.
That's
Yep.
it.
All
Mhm.
right.
There was another slide I forgot. I guess I don't know what happened, but there was another one. Honorable Mia Motley. Any of you care to speak on that one?
Oh, actually, we were speaking about that before the
Oh,
show.
yes.
Yeah, that she would make an excellent Secretary General of the United Nations, but as long as she's
Uh-huh.
still sitting as a prime minister, I don't know if they even allow that. um at that point in 2026. But I know it was I think it was a Jamaican Lena that was reading the story where they were essentially saying that the carrier companies had started to lobby for her because her name is on some list that's name formulated or whatever the case is. So, but I mean that would definitely be a proud moment for us to have. I don't know if we've ever had a Caribbean person sitting on and in such prestigious position inside of the UN. But I listened to her speech. I think it was this week or last week.
Yeah.
At the UN, and as usual, she came with the fire. So
Yeah.
I would definitely love to see her be in a position to make.
Oh, Shaina, we're losing you.
Yeah. I think what
Okay, I'm
she's saying,
back.
she'll love to see Honorable Mia Motley in a position to be Secretary General. I
Mhm.
think how the rotation goes is that Latin America / the Caribbean are next up
Mhm.
for that position, but there are
Okay.
some other persons contending, supposedly might be putting their name in the hat as well. So it's all
Yeah.
about lobbying. It's politics, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
about
That's
lobbying.
global. That's global politics at its highest level.
Yeah, yeah. If you have the resources to lobby, I mean, talk about this. We started talking about the CPA. When you're lobbying for chair of the CPA, never mind SG, there's literally going around the world to Pakistan and to India and to Bermuda and to the all over the place. There's a lot of time and money spent in that. So I guess it depends on whether Ms. Motley wants to.
To do it in the
She
first place.
said she had said that she was going to demit after this term. She had hinted that she'd do 2 terms and then release to younger people. She's actually said stuff like that. So, but
Okay.
26 elections were last year, the year before.
20. Yeah. That's
So,
it.
so 26 should be just about ready to demit. They'll be 4 years, right? So who
They do
knows?
5-year cycles.
Yeah, they do 5 years. Yeah, so she could be getting ready to. But we'll see. I mean, it really would be. It would redound to our image, if not necessarily to our benefit, if we had an
Mhm.
SG from the Caribbean. Um, yeah, and she would certainly make people stand up and listen. I'm not sure the mechanisms of geopolitics would really make much of a difference, but at least she'd be able to bring things to the fore, and we'd get some little
Yeah.
movement or something. Yeah, and of course, it's about time the UN had a woman in office. Come on, it's been what, 60 years or whatever.
Mhm.
It's
1947. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
it's time. It's time.
Yeah.
And it would be to their benefit, because the SDGs in almost all of them mention women in leadership and support for women. So
Yeah.
it would make sense if there were, and they had several women in the last round. They had like 4 or 5 women in the mix the last time, and people
Okay.
had begun to think that we would get a woman then. So maybe this time they'll actually make the move.
Well, we'll see, because she's a radical to the status quo in there. So
Yeah, that's the other thing. They might applaud her once she's not in a position to actually make a difference. You know how that
yeah.
works. You're
Yeah.
fine when you're making noise over there, but when you actually get in the seat, they wouldn't want that. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely applaud it because it sets a whole new precedent for in there. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
All
So
right, guys.
we had a viewer from all the way in Quebec City, Miss Stanley Hill. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank
Merci
you.
beaucoup. And Debbie Bodden from Texas. That sounds awfully like a Caymanian name, Bodden. They have a town a town area in Cayman Islands, the middle area called Boddington. So
Not in town.
thank
Yeah.
you for tuning in. Thank you, Gabriella Miller, for the question,
Mhm.
and Eliano Africo for the question as well. Thank you for everyone that's tuning in, sends us messages, and stops me in the street and says, "Hey, you guys doing a lot of good work." And because what happens in Bermuda is that once you send the recording, next week it plays on channel 82 which is a very popular channel. So thank you, Lemon. Lemon actually has his law degree. So
congratulations.
We want to thank Lemon and thank the people of Bermuda who tune in to us, and people of the region who tune in via Cayman, Marl Road, Radio Turks and Caicos Island, CBN Radio in Virgin Islands, Radio Montserrat when they're not being commandeered by the speaker, and PJFE and Barbados CBC Channel 8. We want to thank you. Thank you all.
All right. So until next time, let us continue to inform and unite as an overseas territory family. Good evening.
Good night, everyone.